sometimes struggle to get up in the morning or wind down for bed at night? I used to find it so difficult. I woke up with no sense of positivity and brightness. I was void of motivation and spirit. This changed completely when I started waking up with a Lumi body clock. These incredible devices mimic the light and colour of a real sunrise and sunset, transforming the experience of waking up and going to sleep completely. Rather than being suddenly woken up with an alarm clock, the Lumi body clock will wake you up gradually with a natural sunrise. The Lumi body clock has been shown to improve the quality of sleep and awakening and to boost mood and productivity in clinical trials. You can personalise your sunrise and sunset from 15 to 90 minutes with their clinically tested unique natural light and more than 20 sleep and wake sounds. We all deserve to sleep well and to wake up feeling fresh. So if you're finding this a challenge and you want to try a new approach, go to lumi.com.
I wanted to start off by asking you about the listening parties that you've been doing over the past over a year, I guess it is now, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did those start for people who don't know? Because it's an amazing idea and also quite a lot of synergy with this podcast, because we spend loads of time talking about the greatest music.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like I'm going to be a bit out of my depth here with some of the records in your book. But I'm really looking forward to talking about them and listening to them once we've discussed some of the ones that I haven't heard before. So anyway, how did this all start?
Well, it started maybe about 8 years ago. And I was watching a film, Four Lions, and Chris Morris had directed that. And one of the actors, Riz Ahmed, said that he was going to tweet along as the film was going, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I watched the film and was reading his tweets, and he said, get into the car, and Chris chose the shot where I laughed the least, or something along those lines. And I thought that was just a real kind of an amazing thing, and I figured that everyone else would have thought it was an amazing thing as well. But I just tweeted to my followers on Twitter, Twitter followers, would anyone like me to tweet along to a Charlatans record, which was Some Friendly, the first Charlatans album. And people seemed to respond, and I did that. And I've since done every album about 10 times, every solo album of mine about 10 times. And, and when we were going into lockdown about a week before, I suggested that I do Some Friendly again. And then at that point, Alex Kapranos jumped in and said, well, I bought that record when I was 17. It's a really great one. So yes. But at that moment, I thought, well, you should do one and use my platform. And I figured that that was a really great idea. And I asked Bonehead, I asked Dave Rowntree, I asked Wendy Smith, I asked all the people in my kind of like, notebook, and all the people that I could DM and got together, because I figured that lockdown would happen for 3 weeks, say, and I tried to plan 3 weeks worth of listening parties.
And so, like, after the initial period of doing this, where it obviously went down really well with fans of all the people who you featured, with your own fans, were you just kind of continuing to do it to keep going through the pandemic, or was there a part of it where, I guess, I don't know how many people you must have met for the first time through doing these listening parties, which must be an amazing element of it?
Yeah, there's a lot I met for the first time. There's a lot of reconnections as well, and then there's lots of people that I do keep in touch with because they're pretty busy on Twitter and stuff like that. So it was a mixture of everybody, really.
And has it turned into a thing where people are releasing new albums, or people in the industry have now heard about your listening parties and like they want to come on to promote their stuff?
Well, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Some consider it like a very credible promotional tool, which of course it is, because it it gets it out to a lot of people that are not necessarily their fans, whoever they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're fans for a start, so
Yeah, my fans for a start.
and I guess you are doing it for the love of it,
Yeah, of course.
not like corporate in any way. So people would, really respond to that, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what have been some of your favorite records that you've done that you already loved?
Well, so many. Technique, New Order, Faith, The Cure, Sophie, and what was her album? Sophie, and that's SOFIE, as opposed to SOPHIE. And the Cult Leaders, her album, that was an amazing one. Theophilus London, Bebe was a really great one. Just tons, all of them really. The amazing thing is that whoever puts on a great listening party wins. It's I keep mentioning that there's a record by Spandau Ballet, a record called True, and I never paid it any attention, not because I wasn't into it, it's just like it was off my radar. But listening to Gary Kemp talk about how he wrote the songs just blew me away, and listening to his conversation or watching his conversation during the listening of the party just made me really love that record and love him.
Yeah, he's great. He's got a very good podcast as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
it must be really good for widening your horizons musically. But I wanted to talk a bit about the book as well, because you've written several books, right? I mean, starting with your autobiography, which I think was in 2012. So what's the thinking behind the book, The Listening Party? Because there's some albums, there's 100 albums selected for it, right?
Yeah, there's 100 albums selected for it, and I mean, they were really selected by, I mean, for the most part, I suppose, by me and the company, DK Books, who wanted to put the book out. They had quite a good idea about how it should look, and I fancied the idea of it looking like an old Guinness Book of Records book, like an annual, as opposed to a paperback or a hardback, more like an annual thing, not a coffee table book, but an annual. That's I'm not going to say annual again. So obviously, the first person that I asked was Paul McCartney, because if he's in it, it makes it easier to ask everybody else. But nobody said no. Everybody knew that the profits were going to go to Music Venue Trust, who had suffered a lot, during the pandemic. All the workers and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really good thing, and Kylie was very important to have her in it. It's very important to have like Fontaines in there, and and Oasis and Liam, and and it was important to have me in there. And then I had favorites like Julia Holter that I really wanted, that had to be in there for me, and Theophilus and Chastity Bell, because I didn't want it to be too genre specific, or I didn't want it to be too like nostalgic. I wanted it to be present, past.
Yeah, it is for sure. How would you characterize the 100 records in there? Are they like your favorite 100 of all time, or are they like
a combination of big hitters, and personal favorites, that kind of thing, really.
I'm really looking forward to working my way through some of these records. I wanted to ask you about what makes you like some of them for a start. And I'm just going to have to pick them out at random because there are obviously so many. And it's quite fun because normally people just send me a list of 5, whereas I've got a list of 100 in your case. So
Yeah.
let's start with John Grant, who came on the podcast and is awesome. And I feel like quite underrated, John Grant.
Right.
So why do you like Pale Green Ghosts and John Grant?
Well, I mean, I don't think John's underrated in my eyes. Anyway, I mean,
either, but I wish more people knew.
I did a track with him. That's not yet come out. It's not finished, but so we've done something together. Yeah, I've been a fan. I think he was part of. So he was part of a festival, I think, that we did for Broken Record. So it was kind of quite a political festival. Him and Boy George, and a few others, but there's like 10 in total. And yeah, I just think that's one of his most popular. And John's a great person to have on board.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got an amazing voice, amazing songwriting. The sound of that record, like the production on it, is unbelievable.
Lyrics, interesting guy.
In terms of, to talk to, he was really, really interesting. Roisin Murphy, that record, Roisin Machine, I guess that was the one that came out last year.
Yeah, so that was, that was her record. So she was promoting that record, but she's done so many. She is the queen, of the listening party. She's done so many, and she brings the party to the party. So for that reason alone, Roisin's in every time, whenever she wants.
Yeah, that record is a great sounding, like, disco record. What about the Streets? Like original Pirate material?
Yeah, well, that came in from, so I did a Dexys Midnight Runners listening party, and their manager Tim Biggin, I've known for a long time, and he convinced Kevin to do one, and Kevin thought it was the most wonderful thing. Kevin Rowland. Now, so he manages Mike Skinner, and he suggested it to Mike, who I don't think is particularly interested in social media in any way. So he was a bit cautious, but decided it would be a great one to do, and it was the biggest one. It was the biggest one for a long time.
Oh, right. Wow. I didn't know that. And so the Libertines up the bracket. For a start, I wanted to ask, were you in a band at one stage that never released an album?
No.
Carl Barrett. What happened with that? I'm sure your fans will be keen to know.
Oh,
I'm kind of keen to know.
Yeah, well, me and Carl were friends, and we still are. We don't see each other as often as we used to, but so Libertines had kind of, I don't know whether they'd split up or whether he was fronting the Libertines as opposed to it being, the pair of them. And I was at a loose end and was asked to do a solo show at the Tap and Tin, where famously Carl and Pete did the gig after Pete came out of prison. So I did a gig and I needed a band, and Carl said he'd be in the band, and we ended up doing half my songs and half his songs with Martin Duffy from Primal Scream and Andy Burrows from Razorlight on the drums. And we decided that night that we would play 5 shows, one in a pub, one at Glastonbury, one at the Carnegie Hall, one on TV. And we'd have amazing special guests, George Clooney, Paris Hilton, and Christopher Lee, join us on our voyage. And so it was just all that, really. And we made headlines in Chatham in the Chatham papers. We called ourselves the Chavs. we played Glastonbury with a completely different lineup. We did a TV show with another completely different lineup, but it was just me and Carl. It's great. And then it kind of just, we didn't manage gig 4 and 5, so we would never know whether we would have made it to the Carnegie Hall.
Well, it may happen yet.
Yeah, maybe.
You're both still around. Fingers crossed on that.
Yeah. Someone books it, we'll come.
I wanted to go back to the beginning because, most people listening to this will be very familiar with your story, but for those people who aren't, what drew you into music in the first place? What made you want to become, a singer and a songwriter?
Well, I think, I was like, so my mum's the eldest of 6 kids, and her youngest brother, Andrew, was only a few years older than me. He's like, maybe 5-6 years older than me. So, and I used to really look up to him. I didn't have a brother. I had a sister who was amazing, but I looked up to Andrew like an older brother, and he had records. He had guitars, bass and a electric guitar, and but records and posters on his wall and stuff like that. So I used to go up to his room and just hang out and listen to crazy records like Jethro Tull and Genesis and popular rock groups of the time. And I thought, this is really great. Led Zeppelin. He had Led Zeppelin posters on his wall and stuff like that. And then so I wanted my room to have my posters on my wall, and I was into Bay City Rollers, and I was into Slade and things like that. I had my own thing, and then I started to get into punk. But he was the person really who taught me about, who showed me his world, really.
Wow. Yeah. Lots of different influences that kind of came through later, that's for sure. When did you start making your own music and singing?
Probably when I was about 13. And I was I was into punk, but then I, played electric guitar, and then I played bass, and then when I was about 16, I was into electronic music, so I bought myself a synth. I was never really the singer in any of the bands. I was just like, in bands, and then I was into a band that was very heavily inspired by Joy Division, and we used to play lots of songs by the Cult and Stooges and the Doors.
And when did you start becoming like the lead singer of a band?
Well, there's a band called Electric Crayons, or we were originally called Electric Crayon Set, and we did quite a lot of psychedelic songs. And the bass player was really into Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I wasn't quite sure about that. But so it wasn't, it wasn't everything that I dreamed of. But I was the singer in that band. We made one single, and then the day that single came out, I joined the Charlatans. So it was kind of, I put something out, and then, but at the same time, I'd made a record, but at the same time, I was leaving the band.
So you already knew that you were leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah, when it came out. So for people who don't know, like the Charlatans they were already formed, right? When you joined, and you were the final thing before.
Yeah, they were already a band playing under that name. Yeah.
I mean, they weren't the Charlatans as we know now. The first album hadn't come out. That's important to clarify. But of course, yeah. How did you meet everybody? And because this was down in West Midlands, right?
No, I met everybody in a record shop in Northwich in Cheshire.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because their manager, or they just appointed a manager who owned the record shop that I used to go in, and he suggested me. So I went down for actually, I think rewinding a little bit. The band, the Electric Train Set, had actually supported the Charlatans pre me, so it's kind of like they watched me, and Rob really liked me, and so when they were looking for a new singer, and I met them around Northwich because me and Martin used to talk about clothes all the time. He was really into, this jacket that I was wearing, and we looked at records together, like psychedelic records by the Chocolate Watch Band and the Standells, and the band called The Creation that we all used to really like. And then Steve suggested that I go for an audition. Steve was their manager, and he drove me down.
What did you have to do at the audition? Just sing tunes?
Well, they had 3 instrumentals that they wanted to play for me, and I just kind of got on a microphone and started making some words up on the spot.
All right.
And there was a few notes that I brought with me because I said that I'd like to write my own words, and that was it.
Wow. And when you first started playing, I've read that one of the kind of breakthrough gigs was supporting the Stone Roses. That's
before me? No, it's before me.
Before you. So the band. So how big were the band before you joined?
Well, they hadn't put a record out.
They hadn't even put a record out. And so, what was the making of that first record like, and what was the transformation from being like total unknowns into being kind of one of the most influential bands of the 90s?
Well, they wanted to change the name when I joined, and I thought, you shouldn't, because it's such a flipping iconic name. So they were happy, they were fine with that, but they thought that they were big enough to to warrant a name change. You know what I mean? So it had gone. There's some decent support slots and things like that. They got some demos out, but no records. We thought that we would write a bunch of songs to go and play live with, but maybe use some of their songs that they already had. But the connection was so crazy that within 5 months we only rehearsed Wednesdays and Sundays, but within 5 months we had a complete set to play that we were happy with, without using any of the old stuff.
And the album, the first album is so iconic, so Unfriendly. Do you enjoy listening to it now? I mean, obviously, I think the answer is yes, given the listening parties and things like that. But do you still enjoy listening to it whenever you hear it, or do you still enjoy performing the songs? Would you ever get tired of those kind of songs that mean so much to people?
I don't listen to the album very often, apart from when I do listening parties. But I do love that album because it sounds so innocent, and it sounds, like a record that didn't have any guidelines. It was just like, we didn't know what we were doing, and that's the beauty of it. We did know what we were doing, but we didn't, because we've never all been in a studio before together. I love playing The Only One I Know. I love playing Spross and Green, and I would play and attempt to play any of the other songs on it.
And when people like music journalists or people who write about music write about your sound, I mean, people throw in all sorts of genres, and I guess that's all too easy for people who call themselves critics. But like, because you mentioned quite a diverse array of influences, so is that like a conscious thing when you're putting together stuff? I'm going to put a bit of Northern soul in here, or I'm going to do. It's not like that, is it? Is it just kind of comes out?
It's not really as cynical as that. But I mean, I remember at the time going to, I suppose you're the slave of the DJs who play at the time, you know, and we used to go to this club that we really liked in the Midlands, because that's where Martin was from, and we used to rehearse there, you know, in the early days, and there's a club called Punch and Judy's who used to play Pink Floyd, you know, a Syd Barrett era Pink Floyd, Spaceman 3 records, band called the Hypnotics, who were kind of also kind of pretty big around that time, and you know, the Monkees, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Dionne Warwick, you know, all these, like, so it's a genre splicing thing, but all of a similar thing that was quite exciting. And then, you know, I used to go to the Hacienda and they would play like acid house music, and I'm just into it all. I'm just, you know, as opposed to being like, oh, I hate this, I hate that. I mean, I've always loved punk, I've always loved two-tone, I've always loved 60s, I've always loved dance music. It's whatever I like, really. I just like it all. And I take it all in. And I'm not saying that it's all down to me in any way, because I think, you know, Mark, he knows a good tune when he hears it too. you know. I think having blinkers is bad, you know.
Yeah. Well, but I feel like there's a difference, because in the sense of, I guess, the three most iconic bands of the 90s, Charlatans, Stone Roses, and Oasis. I mean, all those Stone Roses, I guess, I'm not sure whether you'd say 90, I guess the first album was 1990, but whatever. I always kind of group those three bands together in terms of like being so influential and iconic to that particular era. But the difference being, Oasis, I feel like, was very much, oh, everything is kind of not that good apart from like rock and stuff. Whereas the Charlatans and the Roses were more kind of lots of influences and more of a melting pot. How do you feel about the type of music that's made by people like Oasis, like the more kind of like less influences? Is that your kind of cup of tea as well?
Oasis is my cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is, because you've done listening parties and things.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I know them all as as people too. So I mean, it's kind of hard to sort of say, really. I mean, I've just known them since they came out, and yeah, I like some of their stuff. I mean, it's hard not to hear their stuff, you know, because it gets played everywhere. But I don't own any of the records.
That's interesting.
That doesn't mean I don't like them. It just means that I don't play their records at home, you know. But there's so many records in the world, you know, that if I had every record in the world, I wouldn't have anywhere to live.
Yeah, and I guess also they must have been played so much. You're going to hear them. You hear their records anyway.
Exactly, and you know, I mean, I absolutely love Bonehead to bits. You know, I absolutely love him to bits, and you know, I've had really great nights out with Liam, and you know, and they're all good guys. You know, they made some great records, but I don't feel like I need to listen to them on a daily basis. That's like almost putting a negative into it. It's not. It's just
no, not at all.
I have, you know, ABBA is the first record in my collection, followed by you know, followed by Animal Collective, you know, followed by Ariel Pink, followed by Beastie Boys. You know, I mean, it's like it's pretty mixed up, but they're you know.
So, yeah, very, very eclectic taste in music. So are you still as excited about checking out new stuff and going to record stores as you ever were?
Yeah, I've not been into a record shop for a while, because every time I do go in, I have to buy something. I can't just browse. I have to buy something, because I feel like I've got to leave with something.
But you haven't kind of like lost that thing of finding like new music just as exciting as like when you were starting the Charlatans and, you know?
Well, no, I haven't heard anything that's really turned me on for a while.
Really? Oh, okay.
You know, but that, I mean, what? Well, you know, since going back into record shops again after the pandemic, you know, I've not really bought anything of merit recent, but I've been going through a lot. So,
But so by that, do you think there's not like that much good stuff coming out, or is it just that you haven't really had time to listen to new
I
stuff?
just haven't had time to listen.
And you're about to go out on tour. When does the tour start?
I don't know. 15th of November.
And like, when was the last time that you played before this? Will this be like your first gig in nearly 2 years?
No, I played last week with my solo band.
So what did you play last week?
My solo band has just done a tour, and it was like one of the most amazing things ever.
Oh wow, I did not know that. So what was the solo tour in terms of when did it start and when did it finish?
I don't know the exact dates.
But like, was it like started in the summer and just finished, or?
It started. I finished like 4 days ago, and it started 2 weeks before that.
Wow. And so with your solo stuff, one of the tracks that I really enjoyed, that's obviously one of your most played, is "Empathy for the Devil."
Yeah.
Did you read about comparisons of yourself with Mick Jagger, and were you flattered by them in the press?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Mick. He's like not even human. He's like beyond human.
I mean, I would have thought the answer would be yes. And
yeah, it is. Yeah, I love him. You know, he's amazing. But I mean, I don't. I mean, God, I mean, like the best frontman ever, probably.
Yeah, but well, he's got to be up there.
Yeah.
Did you? Because it's quite a kind of fearless thing to do to write a song called "Empathy for the Devil," because, I mean, everybody's going to know that it's, or, I mean, I'm assuming it's an answer to "Sympathy for the Devil."
Well, it's just it's a reference to it. But the song was for a long time was called Empathy, and then I came up with a riff that went do 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 do, and I just thought I'll put "for the devil" in there, and I just thought it would be funny, really. So it's not me trying to hide anything. It's me trying to just like be jokey, really.
That whole album, I Love the New Sky,
Yeah,
is wicked. I would really recommend.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, that was the tour that I did, so it was 15 months late, but that's what I've just done. Yeah.
And was that in the UK and Europe?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there's more to come. There's more coming in June. Although I've not announced it yet, but there's more coming next year.
Well, I'm going to look up some of the footage on YouTube. I'm sorry, that was pathetic lack of research from
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely no problem at all. I mean, it's like it's fine. Don't worry about it.
And obviously it's quite an annoying question, because, so I'm not exactly asking you what you prefer, but what are the differences between going out solo and as a band? Is there anything that you feel is like easier going out solo?
Yeah, it is easier going out solo, but that doesn't mean it's any more enjoyable. I'd say I kind of like compartmentalize things, really. So I mean, I treat it very different, but also the same. You know what I mean? So I put as much effort into everything that I do, whether it's a book or whether it's a solo record or whether it's a tour, whether it's a DJ set. You know, I try and do the best that I can with everything. So I was looking forward to this tour for the longest time, and now I'm done. I can really look forward to the Charlatans tour, you know, and it's like the same person, but different parts of me, if you know what I mean. I mean, the same, but a different way of approaching it. It's like, writing a song, I kind of feel that I write a song the same all the time, right? Same instrument, different chords that I that reflect my mood of that moment, notes on the guitar, melodies that reflect my mood of that moment, but principally the same approach of writing. Try and get a verse, an intro, a middle eight, an outro, and then the song then becomes it's who you make the song with that makes the song become the final thing. And if I'm making a song with the Charlatans, it's going to be different than making it with whoever I choose to make this song with as part of my solo record. You know what I mean? So everybody's involved. Every member of the Charlatans is involved in the songwriting. But with my solo stuff, I just write it all myself.
With songwriting and with making music, how much do you feel it's who you're making the music with, the atmosphere, the vibe, like your mindset versus musical ability as the deciding factor? Is it all in the camaraderie, the atmosphere, and the vibe, or do you think like how much do you think there's a thing between that? Because some people place all their emphasis on just practicing.
Yeah. I think you need one of them in your band. I think you need one of those members in your band, and I think you need someone who doesn't give a fuck as well. You know what I mean?
What would you say you are?
So for me, it's all about a vibe, and it's about saying something good and something positive or something meaningful, some clever lyrics, having a swagger, an attitude, or some real great melodies. And it changes what I feel about a song should be. But I think I need someone who can actually play, because I can't really play that good. I can play enough to write a song, but and I'm playing guitar live, now these days. But
I'm always interested to ask someone like you who is obviously, there's a lot of the personality and swagger side of things in there. Like, do you ever sit down and like open a manual, not a manual, like a music theory book and think, I'm going to brush up on my, pentatonic scales or something? Does that ever happen in your day-to-day life?
Well, no, because I don't read manuals, and two, I don't know what a pentatonic scale is. Even if you just made that word up, I wouldn't know.
And it's okay, that's what I thought. But how did you learn to play guitar in the first place? Did you play along to records?
No, my uncle Andrew again taught me a few chords. D, and I mean D's a nice chord to play. He's quite easy, and E minor I really like to play. And I just kind of like learn, and I actually did get there's a couple of books knocking around or on the internet. I just looked at like some interesting chords because I wanted to broaden my horizons in about 2008 of like, instead of just using major chords, I wanted to start using minor chords, although and Bacharach style chords, the shapes and things like that, and hopefully I can seamlessly fit them into my writing now.
I'm sure you could. What about your voice? Do you do anything to take care of your voice? Do you like do any of the warm-ups or any of that stuff? You just get on and do it naturally?
Well, I have done warm-ups when I was playing with a band called Average Sex. They had a warm-up app on their phone that they did, and I just joined in. But I don't do warm-ups, and I don't do anything to look after my voice either. I mean, when I go on tour, after a few shows, I drink honey and lemon, but that's it.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel like it's a bit of a downer before a show to be just kind
having
of
a throat,
doing loads of vocal warm-ups or something when you're probably like keen to get on. Have you kept the same passion for performing live that you ever had? Is it still like the same thrill that it was?
It's different. I mean, it's different. I mean, of course, it's a thrill. I just want it to be honest and real and sort of like meant and reciprocated. This when you go out, when I walk out on stage, I don't really feel like pumped or anything like that. I just feel like it's the start. So it's like the first serve in a game of tennis or something like that. Someone has to start it, and then someone responds, and that's the audience. And then then the audience gives you something back, and it's like, whoa, I was not expecting that. And then the next song is like, fucking hell, take that. And then there's a bigger applause, and it just sort of moves around like big waves and smaller waves, and it's just a really physical thing.
Do you ever have bad shows or moments where you're on stage and like, I don't need to do this anymore, or like I don't.
No, never like that. No, but I mean, there's moments where there's shows where the audience can be a bit tricky, and it may be a Wednesday night, a miserable Wednesday night in the middle of, I don't know, in the middle of nowhere, and and people are not drinking because they're going to work the next day and things like that, and they're a bit quiet, and that can just be a little bit like, oh well, what do I do next? What do I do next? And you think about it, and and you dig deep, and then Charlatans have this song called Spross and Green, and that normally wins people over.
The Charlatans are celebrating 30th anniversary. That's the reason why you're going on tour. What has been the most difficult thing to overcome? What's been the most difficult challenge in your 30-year career?
Well, I suppose like making an album after Rob died, our keyboard player, finishing that album off, telling stories, and and doing the album after he died, really, I suppose. I mean, anyone who knows about the band would know that period of our lives, but anyone who doesn't, he died in a car crash, and he was kind of the lead writer, really, in the band, and the best singer,
This episode is brought to you by Pact. Pact specialise in making travel easy for you with the beautifully designed Pact 1. This innovative travel bag can be packed with as much as a suitcase, but it carries like a duffel bag. The Pact 1 is a bag that's been perfected with over 5 years of global travel testing spanning hundreds of thousands of miles. The Pact Coffee Kit provides you with everything you need to make barista quality coffee whilst on the move. It can be used anywhere you have water and electricity, so there will be no more poor quality coffee on your travels. Pact aren't only an amazing brand because of their products, which quite simply make your life better. They ensure fair working conditions for their factory employees and use eco-friendly materials and plastic-free packaging. You can use the code GREATEST for 15% off the Pact 1 or the Coffee Kit. Simply head to pactbags.com and use the code upon checkout. Pact, revolutionising your travel experience.